In every medical emergency drill, she froze. While others moved with practiced efficiency, Corpsman Elena Rodriguez stood paralyzed, overwhelmed by voices, by chaos, by the weight of life and death decisions she couldn't seem to make fast enough. Her instructors had given up. Her classmates barely hid their contempt. They called her Slow Hands Rodriguez behind her back, whispered that she'd never make it through combat medic school. But they all missed what was really happening beneath the surface. The way her pupils dilated when she entered a room with injured patients. The way her breathing changed around trauma cases. The way she seemed to know things she couldn't possibly know. Until one day, a Navy SEAL medic saw what everyone else had missed. One command changed everything, and the soldiers who had mocked her were about to witness something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about medicine. Welcome to The Last Witness. Before we begin this story of hidden gifts and awakened potential, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those whose abilities go far beyond what meets the eye. The simulation room at Naval Medical Center San Diego buzzed with controlled chaos. Mannequins lay scattered across mock battlefield scenarios, their wounds realistic enough to make seasoned medics wince. The distinctive smell of synthetic blood and latex filled the air as 17 students prepared for their final combat medicine assessment. Elena Rodriguez stood at the back of the group, her medical kit clutched tightly in hands that had already begun to shake. At 24, she was older than most of her classmates, a former hospital technician who'd enlisted hoping to serve wounded warriors overseas. But after 16 weeks of training, she was barely hanging on. Chief Petty Officer Martinez called the exercise to order, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter. Today's scenario: mass casualty event, limited resources, hostile environment. You have 12 minutes to triage and treat all casualties. Rodriguez, you're up first. Elena's heart rate spiked as she approached the first mannequin. The simulated soldier had suffered multiple penetrating wounds to the chest, simulated blood pooling beneath the body. Standard protocol: assess airway, breathing, circulation. Apply pressure bandages. Call for evacuation. But as she knelt beside the dummy, something else happened. The familiar sensation she'd been fighting for months crashed over her like a wave. Not just the visual assessment her training demanded, but something deeper. Images flashed in her mind's eye. The trajectory of the simulated shrapnel, the likely internal damage, the precise sequence of interventions needed not just to stabilize, but to save. It was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. Elena froze. Rodriguez, Chief Martinez barked. Clock's ticking. What's your assessment? Elena's mouth moved, but no words came. Her hands hovered inches from the mannequin, trembling with the weight of knowledge she couldn't process, couldn't organize, couldn't act upon. Tension pneumothorax, she finally whispered. Need to decompress. Speak up. Can't hear you. I said tension pneumothorax. Elena shouted, then immediately shrank back. Needle decompression, then chest seal, then... Too slow, Martinez cut her off. In the field, that patient would be dead. Next, Elena stumbled to the second casualty, her confidence shattered. The pattern repeated itself. Overwhelming sensory input, flooding intuition, paralysis. By the time the exercise ended, she had lost 4 patients to delayed treatment. Her classmates filed past her afterward, some shaking their heads in disgust. 16 weeks of training, and she still can't handle basic triage, muttered Petty Officer Chen. She sees things nobody else sees, then does nothing about it, added Seaman Torres. What good is intuition if you're too scared to act? But someone else had been watching from the observation deck. Someone who recognized what others had dismissed as failure. Hospital Corpsman First Class. Jake Doc Morrison was a legend among Navy SEALs. 15 years of special operations medicine, countless lives saved in conditions that would break ordinary medics. He'd volunteered to observe the final assessments, looking for candidates who might have what it took for special operations medicine. Most of the students had performed competently. By-the-book assessments, standard treatments, acceptable outcomes. But Elena Rodriguez had seen things that weren't in any textbook. Tell me about Rodriguez, Morrison said to Chief Martinez afterward. Martinez shook his head. Waste of training resources. Smart enough on paper, but can't perform under pressure. She's got this weird ability to identify injuries that aren't even in the scenario parameters, then freezes up before treating anything. What do you mean, injuries that aren't in the parameters? Last week's exercise involved a simulated IED blast. Rodriguez identified a subdural hematoma in one of the mannequins. Problem was, we hadn't programmed any head trauma into that particular dummy. She was seeing injuries that weren't there. Morrison's interest sharpened, or injuries that would develop later. Come again? Secondary trauma presentations, delayed symptom manifestation. Some combat medics develop enhanced pattern recognition, can predict injury progression before symptoms appear. Morrison paused. Most can't handle the sensory overload. That evening, Elena sat alone in her barracks room, staring at her medical textbooks through tears of frustration. Tomorrow would bring her final chance at assessment. Fail, and she'd be reassigned to general hospital duty. Her dreams of serving with frontline troops ended. A knock at her door interrupted her spiral of self-doubt. Rodriguez? Doc Morrison. Mind if I come in? Elena scrambled to attention as the legendary SEAL medic entered her small room. She'd heard stories about Morrison, whispered tales of impossible saves under impossible conditions. Rumor had it he'd once performed emergency surgery inside a crashed helicopter while under enemy fire. At ease, Rodriguez. Just want to ask you a few questions. Morrison's voice was calm, professional. Tell me what you see when you look at a trauma patient. Elena hesitated. Sir, I see what my training tells me to see. Primary survey, secondary assessment. Cut the textbook response. Tell me what you really see. Elena looked at him, searching for judgment in his eyes and finding only genuine curiosity. I see too much, sir. It's like my mind processes not just what's happening, but what's going to happen. The secondary injuries, the complications that might develop, the interventions that will be needed hours or days later. Morrison nodded slowly. And that overwhelms you? Yes, sir. By the time I've processed all the information, valuable treatment time has passed. I see the whole picture, but I can't focus on the immediate priorities. What if I told you that's not a weakness, Rodriguez? What if that enhanced perception is exactly what makes certain medics invaluable in special operations? Elena's eyes widened. Sir, tomorrow's assessment. I'll be running it personally. When I give you a command, I want you to trust your instincts completely. Don't filter what you see through protocol. Don't second guess your intuition. Just act on what your enhanced perception tells you. I don't understand, sir. Morrison stood to leave. You will tomorrow. 0600 hours. Simulation Lab C. And Rodriguez. Tomorrow, when you feel that overwhelming flood of information, don't fight it. Embrace it. The next morning, Elena entered Simulation Lab C to find a scenario unlike any she'd trained for. Instead of the standard battlefield setup, she faced what appeared to be the aftermath of a helicopter crash. Multiple casualties with varying degrees of trauma, limited lighting, and the constant sound of approaching enemy fire played through speakers. Morrison stood at the observation window. Rodriguez, you have 15 minutes to assess and treat all casualties. Standard triage protocols are suspended. Trust your instincts and act accordingly. Elena approached the first casualty and immediately felt the familiar, overwhelming surge of information. But this time, instead of fighting it, she let the enhanced perception wash over her. Images cascaded through her mind, not just the visible injuries, but the internal trauma, the timeline of complications, the precise interventions needed. Rodriguez, Morrison's voice cut through her trance. Activate protocol enhanced. The command meant nothing to her rational mind, but something deeper responded instantly. The overwhelming flood of information suddenly organized itself into perfect clarity. Her enhanced perception didn't disappear, it crystallized into focused, actionable intelligence. Elena moved with unprecedented precision. She bypassed the most obviously wounded casualty, her enhanced awareness telling her his injuries, while dramatic, were stable, and went directly to a victim with seemingly minor trauma. Delayed rupture of the spleen, she announced, beginning immediate pressure point compression. He'll bleed out internally in 6 minutes without intervention. She worked through the casualties with surgical precision, her enhanced perception allowing her to prioritize based not on visible trauma, but on true medical urgency. She identified a developing tension pneumothorax before symptoms appeared, caught early signs of compartment syndrome that wouldn't be visible for hours, and predicted which patients would develop shock based on injury patterns invisible to conventional assessment. When the exercise ended, Elena had not only saved every simulated patient, but had done so with interventions that anticipated complications before they developed. Chief Martinez stared at the results in disbelief. I've never seen anything like it. It's like she could see inside the patients, predict injury progression, prioritize based on information that shouldn't be available. Morrison nodded. Enhanced medical intuition. Some combat medics develop it naturally. Hypersensitive pattern recognition, combined with subconscious integration of multiple sensory inputs. Most can't handle the cognitive load. So why could she suddenly perform today? Because she stopped fighting her natural abilities and started using them. Morrison turned to Elena, who stood quietly processing what had just happened. Rodriguez, report to my office at 1400 hours. We need to discuss your new assignment. That afternoon, Elena learned about a program she'd never known existed. Special operations medics with enhanced perceptual abilities, trained to handle medical emergencies that conventional training couldn't prepare for. They were deployed with SEAL teams, Marine Force Recon, and other elite units where split-second medical decisions could determine mission success. Your enhanced perception isn't a disability, Rodriguez. It's a superpower that needs proper training. Morrison pulled out a file marked with classifications she'd never seen. But first, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. This program pushes the boundaries of conventional medicine. You'll be trained to trust intuition over protocol, to act on information your conscious mind can't process. Elena thought about the months of failure, the mockery, the crushing weight of expectations she couldn't meet. Then she thought about the clarity she'd felt that morning, the precision, the knowledge that she was finally using abilities she'd never understood. When do I start, sir? 6 months later, Elena found herself attached to SEAL Team 7, deployed to a forward operating base in Syria. Her reputation had preceded her. The medic who could see injuries before they manifested, who could predict medical complications with uncanny accuracy. During her first real combat deployment, when their convoy hit an IED and she found herself treating wounded SEALs under enemy fire, Elena understood why Morrison had spent so much time helping her embrace her abilities rather than suppress them. As she worked through the casualties with enhanced perception, guiding every decision, she heard one of the wounded SEALs whisper to his teammate, "That medic's got some kind of supernatural sight. She knew I had internal bleeding before I felt the first symptom." Elena smiled as she continued her work. They had no idea how right they were. The program that had rescued Elena from failure went on to identify and train dozens of other enhanced medics. Each had struggled in conventional training, overwhelmed by abilities they didn't understand. Under proper guidance, they became the most effective combat medics in military history. Elena never returned to conventional medicine. Her enhanced perception made her invaluable to special operations, where the ability to see beyond surface trauma could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Years later, when she was asked to help train new candidates for the Enhanced Medic program, Elena always started with the same lesson. Your abilities aren't a weakness disguised as strength. They're strength disguised as weakness. The only difference is learning to trust what you see. She never forgot the lesson Morrison had taught her. Sometimes, the things that make us different aren't disabilities to overcome, but gifts waiting to be properly understood. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone whose greatest weakness turned out to be their greatest strength? someone who struggled until the right person recognized their hidden potential? Share their story in the comments below. Let this space become more than a video. Let it be a place where we honor those whose abilities go far beyond what meets the eye. Because at the last witness, we believe the most powerful stories are about people who don't fit the mold, until someone realizes the mold was wrong all along. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, subscribe, share, and help us keep alive the voices of those whose gifts are hidden in plain sight. We'll see you in the next one. And remember, the next time you see someone struggling with abilities others don't understand, look closer. You might be witnessing a superpower waiting to be awakened.